Welcome to our YouTube channel in our basement. My name is Niels.
And I'm Gail. We're going to be having conversations and share our thoughts about things that we're really passionate about.
And just before we get started, go ahead and hit that subscribe button.
And if you like the content, then feel free to share it on your social media platform.
Seatbelts, everyone! Please let this be a normal field trip. With a friends? No way!
Cruising on down Main Street, you're relaxed and feeling good. Next thing that you know, you see it. What's in the neighborhood? Surfing on the sound wave, swinging through the stars. Take a left at human testing. Take your second right past Mars on the magic school bus.
Oh man, I absolutely loved that show as a kid. And
I think it was like the best when you saw the TV rolling into your classroom.
Oh
and
yeah,
Ms
Frizz
came on
with Frizz. No way. You know, like, what is a big question I've had throughout this pandemic, or well, maybe recently, as I saw that kids were rolling back to school, as we're currently at the end of September, for when we filmed this. But my question is, how would Ms Frizzle and her students have handled the coronavirus?
That is a very good question.
Like, do you think Ms Frizzle would have taken the students on a trip?
100%. They would have gone on a trip on the Magic School Bus in the correct, all wearing masks, of course.
Well, no, the Magic School Bus is probably...
yeah.
Yeah, she just pushes a button and it goes...
Maybe the Magic School Bus would wear a mask.
Maybe. Yeah, the Magic School Bus and Liz,
And then I think that they would have probably gone to the DNA or whatever you call it of the virus.
Yeah.
And studied it.
Yeah, maybe. Hey, do you think Ralphie... Well, sorry, not Ralphie. Ralph. Is it Ralphie? Ralph? Maybe Ralphie. Yeah, I can't remember what his name was. The guy with the red hat, when they went inside his body when he was sick, do you think he had the coronavirus? Dun, dun, dun. Well, all we know is that he was sick.
Do you think that Ms Frizzle would find a vaccine?
Of course, it's the Frizz. It's the next.
With Frizz?
No way! And then Arnold being like the story of what everyone says today. Oh, I knew I should have stayed home today. And then DA being like, according to my research. And then Carlos coming up with some cheesy pun. I got nothing right now. Although people would jokingly tell me I was kind of like Carlos because I had my cheesy puns.
Yeah. I gotta say, we should probably stop talking about this because
what? Okay, we should. Yeah.
We are cool and we are adults.
Right. Think about that. How would Miss Frizzle have solved the coronavirus pandemic?
It's a good challenge.
That is Comment below and let us know what you think.
Just press pause and comment. What would Miss Frizzle have done?
Play. Okay, they just put play. And not much play. Welcome to our show in our basement. Before I invite our guest onto the show, who is a teacher and one of our friends I want to ask you, have you ever been in like a pandemic situation? Well, I guess, we really haven't. This is probably the biggest one of our generation. But have you ever had to like stay home from school for anything that was serious or something along these lines or anything else?
Well, I don't believe, in my memory, the only reason other than being sick or faking being sick, don't tell on me.
Yeah.
Mom, I don't feel good. And then they goes to work. Oh, I need to stop. Sorry, Mom and Dad.
Yeah.
I'm still an angel.
Wait, no, okay. I want to elaborate on this. Did you like take like those heater things put on your forehead?
No. I was just such an angel that my parents took my word for it.
Did you flutter your eyelashes and say, "Mom, I'm sick"? No, I'm just kidding.
No. Anyways, so the only reason I think that school was ever canceled or like whatnot was because I grew up in Winterpeg, Manitoba.
What?
And what happens in this city and province is a lot of snow.
That's the S word. No, I'm just kidding.
Sorry, I know it's still fall. Hopefully there's no snow when we release this.
You never know.
Oh my
right?
goodness,
Yeah.
that would just, no, Lord forgive me.
Yeah.
But yeah, the only reason why I think I ever stayed home or school was canceled was because of there being too much snow, that it was actually not safe to drive. And I think, like, I know you grew up most of your time in Toronto,
Yeah.
and you had your
In the 6, yeah.
snow days, but
Yeah. Well, we had a snowstorm, this thing called El Nino, I think, in the late 90s.
and
so-
how much snow was it?
No, it was a lot. Like, it was a big snowstorm. I can't remember it, but I remember it happening during the Christmas holidays.
Okay.
Yeah. And then
I'll
yeah,
take your word for it.
no, the thing that kept me home from school, I remember, was SARS. I mean, nowhere as serious as this, just from what I remember. Like, I remember maybe being home from school for about a week or so. I remember like in junior high, maybe it was grade 8. I think I had to like go to school, just grab my homework and then pretty much head back home. And so I remember like missing school for what didn't seem like that long of a time, but I remember it like SARS being very, very serious at the time for sure.
Do you remember if like your mom was home too, or was she still able to go to work during that?
Yeah, I don't recall. Maybe, honestly, I really don't remember that time. It just seems like such a long time ago.
It was a few years ago.
Yeah, it was a blur. So I can't even imagine like right now, like if we were like students and then, like.
Or like if we were parents and had kids in school, like elementary or junior high, like how would we feel?
Yeah, like I think the parents right now, like God bless you. I mean, you guys are superheroes for having to adapt to some of these changes, especially like hearing stories about like some like suddenly becoming school teachers and having to teach their kids, or even having to help them with like the online way of learning, and then being patient with the new protocols and everything that's in place and the restrictions. And so with that, we're going to hear more from our friend Gail. Tell us more about our guest who's going to be joining us on the show here shortly.
So he's a great friend of ours. I've known him for a few more years than you.
Yeah, totally.
And I'm so thankful for, his name is Michael Engstrom, or as his students call him, Mr. Engstrom. I'm not sure he'll want us to call him Mr. Engstrom.
No.
Probably hears that enough.
Too much. Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, I'm really excited. He's a great guy, and I'm excited to hear from his perspective as a teacher about how this is all going in schools. And
yeah, because he teaches at a public school in Winnipeg. All right. Welcome to the show, Mr. Engstrom. Just kidding. We'll call you Michael. But we recognize that here we are in the middle of a pandemic, and you are a school teacher. And so I'm just so curious as to what your experience has been with that. But just before we even get started, how long have you been a teacher, and what got you interested in teaching in the first place?
Oh man, put me on the spot.
Yeah.
Well, I graduated in 2009. Took a year off, so I guess full-time teaching. This is like my going into 10th year.
Oh, wow.
Wow, that's amazing.
I've put in a decade. And I guess what got me into it, like both parents were teachers. My mom and dad were both teachers, and so I grew up with that in my family. We had our lovely, glorious summers off, and homework in the evenings and all that sort of thing. So this was life for us. But
wow.
Working with kids, I've worked at daycares and things like that while I was in university and that. And so, yeah, I have a passion for teaching the young kids.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah,
you
that's
kind of
awesome.
had already seen what home life was like for the teacher, so you knew how much do you work at home after school?
Am I being honest? Well, it depends on the year, the week, the time of year. Like I would say for sure Monday or Sunday to Thursday, between an hour and 2 hours,
Oh,
I'd
wow.
say.
Okay. Wow.
Like I've just prep and that, especially with having a kid now, so it's a bit different
Mhm.
because I'm not staying as late. Like normally I would stay a bit after school, and that's where I'd put in my time, and then I'd come home or whatever. Where it's like daycare pickups or whatever. So
Mhm.
yeah, so usually put the kid to sleep, and then it's time to do some glorious prep work. Woohoo.
So what you're saying, and again, we're just throwing an impromptu question, that teachers get homework too, right?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. We have a lot of homework, and we have to actually do it.
Right.
Do you ever forget your homework at home?
Yeah, actually, that happened to me last week. I
Oh,
forgot
really?
I'm a bit archaic, and I still have a jump drive instead
Okay.
of fully embracing the cloud and putting all my files on the cloud. So I left my jump drive at home last week. Yeah, last week, and it's got everything on there. It's got my lesson plan stuff that I'm doing, and it's
Right.
got all my just everything, like from the time the kids get there in the morning and the warm up stuff. And I'm like, no, I should embrace this cloud thing because, man.
Yeah.
Anyway, but
So because of
oh, yeah.
COVID, this whole forgetting your homework at school, whether you're a teacher or student, that excuse doesn't really fly anymore.
Well,
Right.
yeah, I saw a meme the other
Yeah.
day, and it was like for so many kids are just doing teaching from home or like learning
Yeah.
from home online, and it's like the whole excuse of I forgot my homework at home doesn't fly anymore for those who
Yeah.
are being taught.
Yeah. Yeah, they have to be really creative because the dog ate my homework or anything like that.
Yeah.
Plus, everything's digital now.
Oh,
okay.
Even back to school, like coming with, like we were told from September till mid-October, the first 6 weeks of school, our admin had said, you need to like prep these kids so that they know how to use all of the platforms that we are using, like Microsoft stuff. And I know some school divisions are using like Google Classroom and that. So it's like they wanted those kids who were coming to school to have that because we never got that. Like
Oh wow.
if some school divisions weren't using some of these before, and so March was it 20th, 19th, 20th or something hit, and
Yeah.
there were lots of kids that hadn't used many of these platforms, mostly the younger kids, like K to 6, I want to say.
Wow.
And so it was like they were just thrown into this world, this digital world of,
yeah.
okay, you have to submit everything online, and you have to, everything is done right in this idea of homework. Like you have to do your homework. There's a deadline, and yeah, so that was tough. That was really tough for some of the kids, the ones who'd been using these programs and stuff.
What grade are you teaching now?
This year I'm teaching 6, 7.
6 and 7.
6 and 7. Yeah, it's a weird combo.
Okay.
Definitely
Yeah,
weird.
elementary and now junior high.
Yeah, all together.
So,
Right. Yeah.
you mentioned before that you have 2 classrooms. So
Yeah.
what is the bubble size, I guess, is
Or
what they're
class size,
calling.
yeah.
Yeah, well, so our division, I'm in Lurye, and they've sort of like planned as if we were going to go into an orange level, which we've now met, or we've now hit now.
of
So
today.
which was
Yeah.
as of today. And so what they did was, I think they put a cap at 15.
Okay.
Okay. Wow.
So each classroom size. Now that's also different because it depends on what your class is. Like there's lots of classes in my division that they've actually just moved them. Like they've either moved them to the gym. I've seen a couple tweets out there where there's some classrooms that are all set up in the gym. Some are set up in like the sewing lab or the graphics lab and that. And so they can actually have their whole class of 22 kids, whereas my class started with 22, and the classroom space that I had, just the measurements of it, square footage wise, they couldn't have more than 15. So they split them in half, and they put like my homeroom that I normally have in one room, and then next door, which is like the science lab, that's for my other. So yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Crazy.
Yeah, so it sounds like so much has changed even just from the beginning up until where we are now. What would you say, and you've touched on a little bit of what it was like at the start. Is there anything you'd want to add, like what was it like at the start of the pandemic, for you as a teacher, and then even like having to then transition to online essentially?
Um, oh yeah. Well, I was talking a little bit about it. So, like for me, my students they weren't using any of that. Like they were using some like email things like that, but we hadn't introduced any of the Microsoft suite. Like they could use Word, Microsoft Word and things like that with Microsoft 365, but they weren't using Teams or anything like that. They had no idea about Zoom or any of those, um, those conferencing type videos or whatever.
Yeah.
So that was new for them. And I'll be honest, like I was teaching grades 7 and 8 last year, and
Okay.
a lot of those kids, I'd say probably 2/3 of them, they were, this is their word, not mine.
Yeah.
They coined the term coronication. I should put it in quotes, coronication. Yeah, so
That's
that was where
amazing.
about 2/3 of my class ended up. The other third was quite delightful, and it was great, checking in with them and that. But in all honesty, like a lot of them, they were dealing with family stuff, right? Just
Hmm.
like some of the families have like 5 or 6 kids, and it's just like, and they were the older kids, so they're looking after the
Wow.
younger ones, right? And it was crazy. And so I never held anything against the kids. I just said, you know what, I'm going to be here. I'll be here until June. If you can make it out to some of our whatever. I did lots of like kind of posting videos, so which
Oh.
is also new for me because I didn't do that. I'm a live teacher. I mean, live
Totally.
in the classroom kind of thing. Whereas I had to go live and record sessions or whatever and post them for the kids. And so some of them, like, they actually kind of enjoyed it. They thought it was kind of cool to just be able to watch at their own leisure. Like some of them told me, they're like, "Yeah, I watched your video at like midnight," and I'm like, "Oh, cool! I'm glad you chose me over."
Yeah, over another YouTube video. That's
Yeah, you chose
amazing.
algebra over whatever else your kids are into. So, but yeah, no, so it was crazy. Like it was those 2.5 months they were different, and they were different for everybody. Like I had a different situation than even Heather, my wife. Like
Mm.
she was teaching younger kids too, and they were just, a lot of those kids actually had devices. Like, so it took us, and our division worked pretty quick. Like I think the kids in my room had a device or access to Wi-Fi within 3 weeks
Okay.
of shutdown.
So
Wow.
So like, by
the school
mid-April,
provided?
yeah, the school, like our school division, like my specific school gave out, I think it was like 3/4 of the kids or
Oh,
families
Yeah.
received a laptop. Like it was a
wow.
laptop from the division. They
Yeah.
they found them in other schools or whatever, but they actually shipped them out. Yeah, they sent them out, I think, in like school buses and everything. Like
Oh
they
my
were awesome.
goodness.
That and hampers too. Like they didn't just look after their learning and stuff. Like they were looking after the whole,
Wow.
right, the whole family and that too.
Wow.
So it was very heartwarming. Uh,
Yeah. Michael, I just want to say,
also
like,
crazy.
yeah, like, like, honestly, just hearing that like genuinely like warms my heart because it's like so easy. And I'm just gonna go, just a little bit of a sidebar. Like, just the news can just portray things so negatively and say, oh, look at how, this, how bad this is, or how bad the school situation is. And I get it, things are tough, but just to hear that, like, kids were
Mhm.
given laptops and hampers, I mean, you almost wish that would make the top headlines right there. So, like, thank you so much, man,
Mhm.
for sharing that. That's really
Yeah.
encouraging.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, and that's, I've never seen people like staff. I want to say staff, not just teachers, but like all staff, like your secretarial, your custodial, like you just see people come together and like helping out. Like it's just, yeah, like those are some of the positives that people have to like definitely highlight and like acknowledge and recognize. Because yeah, it's true. Like there are a lot of people were just, this is, that kind of, that just that negativity, and they're allowed to, like I would say, like it was stressful. Like lots of my colleagues in that, like I have one kid, and I would, and I found that really challenging, like
Mm.
having to try to, you know teach at the same time while my kid is running around the house. So, that sort of thing. Whereas like some of my colleagues, they have 3 kids and they're trying to do this, and their husband has to go to work or whatever because he's an essential worker. And like, there's
Mm.
just lots of stories like that. But there were a lot of good things, I think, that came out of this too. Like just, yeah, lots of like connection, a lot of people just realizing what's essential and what really matters most, you know. And
So did your son ever make it into any of your lessons?
oh yeah, lots of Flipgrid. I don't know if you guys know what Flipgrid is or whatever, but
No.
he made it into a bunch of Flipgrid's kind of like, what is it? It's like you can record short little videos, and then kids can view your video, and then they can respond to your video. So they can leave a video, and then there's
Cool.
all these little, like they can add like little emojis to them and text. And man, these kids, they learned how to use this program faster than I did. But yeah, it was. So he made it into a couple of those videos.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it was cute too, even just to see like from March to June or whatever, some of the kids were saying, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe how big your kid is. He's grown in like 2.5 months." I'm like, yeah, it's because he eats a lot. All we do is feed him to keep him quiet. But no.
So now you're back into school this fall.
Mm-hmm.
And there are all these new rules and restrictions put into place. So how has that been for you as a teacher, and how has that been for the kids? Like, have you noticed how has that been with everybody adjusting?
You know what? Again, totally different in different schools, but I'll speak from my like personal what I know. And I do work in a small school too. I should mention that. Like, everyone's got a different situation, but like I have like 150 kids in the school. So it was, I won't say necessarily easier, but it was more manageable for our administration and that to put some of these COVID, new procedures and safety measures and that in place, because there's 2 floors to our building. We all have we all have windows that can open. So that's our ventilation and everything. But like the kids are, I think we say the 3 W's is I think what they had said. So like they want them to wash their hands. They want them to watch their distance, and they want them to, here I am blanking. What's the 3rd W? Oh, wear a mask. Yes. How did I forget that one? And yeah, so those are the 3 W's, and they're they're good about it.
Wow.
And the ones that like we haven't had, I'm trying to think if I don't think I have any, I haven't come across any kid that has flat out just said, no, like I'm not into this. I don't want, like, I'm not going to be involved in this or what, and so like they've just embraced it. There's been lots of talk about like why we're doing these things, like why we're wearing masks, and lots of the conversation is built around like it's not for you yourself, but it's for other people, right? And it's like it's very directed towards that, and like having the kids recognize, and that's a big part of it. And we actually use the word generous, like we use generosity as a word. Wow. Our school, they sort of follow the principles around like the circle of courage. I don't know if you know, which is like just belonging, independence, mastery, and generosity. And so that's one of the things that we've really tried to like highlight with the kids is like when you wear your mask, you're actually being generous. And so like even in schools, like it could be an affluent school, it could be a school like ours, which is, kind of a mixture of different families or whatever. But we always say, like, if you wear your mask, you are being generous. You are thinking about other people. You're thinking about not exposing them. And and essentially you're doing your part. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, on the whole, I guess to say, just like, yeah, they've been really good. The one thing that they're having a hard time with is the human connection part.
Yeah.
Right, like keeping the distance, and that one is hard. And we just like our principal just said, you're going to be reminding these kids for the whole year. Like you're not going to stop. Like usually, you teach kids some new procedures, and it takes them a couple weeks, and then they're good. Right, they've caught on. They're good for the year, that you don't have to do as much reminding. But like that human connection, even the kid connection, like they want to touch, they want to, they want to hug, they want to high five, they want to play grounders at recess. Like and they can't do that, and it's just like, that's the one thing that I will say that and that doesn't matter where you are, like that's just tough. That's tough for anybody, but especially for these kids, so.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
part.
we have a school close to our house, and so I'm pretty sure it's different classrooms, like different grades. Like
Yeah.
every like hour or two, there's just a whole class that's going across the field and then around the block through our street and then back to their school. So they like do this circle,
Yeah.
going for a walk, and I'm like, is that their recess? And like at the
Could be.
beginning,
Or their
like
phys ed, yeah.
they're always wearing masks, and at the beginning they were all very spaced out, but then like today
Yeah.
they were walking by and they had their arms around each other, and it's just like, okay, that's done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And and that's the thing. Like I've taken kids off campus is what it's called, but they're good, but it's true. You know what? The honest truth is that a lot of it's optics. Like a lot of it's
Mm.
about perception and what people are seeing, what the public is seeing, and I get that. I totally get that. But it's also about safety, right? And
Yeah.
even if you're outside, like we're told, like if kids are outside and they want to have their mask off, they still have to maintain like the 2 meter distance or whatever, 6 feet distance. They still can't be touching, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like a lot of our kids, they still wear their mask. They still keep their masks on at recess because they want to be close with their buddies, right? Or they want to
Yeah.
still play soccer, right? Because soccer's fair game as long as it's not contact or whatever. And so like it's funny, they're smart and they find ways around. But yeah, there's for sure there are schools and cohorts of kids who just can't help themselves, right? And they just forget because they get so caught up in whatever, like being with their friends, which so many of them haven't had a chance to
Mm.
experience in that. So
Yeah, one of the things I loved about school was like the cool handshakes you do. I mean, maybe this is the COVID
right,
handshake now, right?
yeah.
But
Air hug.
air hug, yeah.
I just put up a poster the other day. Yeah, there's like 10 of them or something. There's like peace. There's the dab. There's
Okay.
what are the other ones? There's a tip your hat. And
I love
That's
it.
awesome.
ridiculous, but it works. Like they're totally okay with it and whatever. So.
Yeah, I loved what you said about like, the students like being taught to put others before themselves and that they're learning that and doing that, man. That's really encouraging.
Mhm.
We see here that the fall is looking so different for so many kids and especially for parents for schooling. I mean, at the start of the pandemic, parents would have suddenly become school teachers if they decided to pick that up for the kids. And then, teachers teaching online, as you alluded to and as we talked about. And so while some have decided that their kids will still learn at home and others are back in school in person, whether parents are homeschooling or they're back in school, do you have any advice or encouragement to parents as they try to adapt to this new normal?
It's a very loaded question.
Like, that's a loaded question. Yeah. It's so easy to say, but not easy to follow through. But like just being calm.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like finding calm and finding joy. Like finding ways of still bringing joy. And like I think, I don't know. Again, speaking for myself, I've loved the extra family time.
Wow.
As much as it's been hectic and all that. I think I've heard a lot of families, a lot of people have said like that's one of the big things that they've said is that they just really enjoyed, but it is tough and it's hectic and and having multiple kids and just that change to your schedule and them all being inside and it's different. So I don't know, like I think what we always hear Brent Roosten talking about is just like do the essential, make sure you follow the essentials, just be healthy, put safety and healthy at your priority. Like we just did it's called a classroom treaty that we do. Essentially it's like together, instead of the teacher just dictating what the rules of the class are going to be, it's like the class comes together, right? And we put this thing together, we sign it, all the kids sign it, this negotiation that we have fairly come up with. And like at the top of that, and this was their choice, not mine, was, be safe, be healthy.
Wow.
And the kids said like, nothing else matters really that's on that list. I mean, it does, but ultimately, in order for us to be, for anybody who's who is working here, like who's comfortable sending their kids to school with the safety protocols that are in place, and I recognize that they're different all over the city. Like they're
Yeah.
not the same situation. I am very fortunate, and I have like a bit of peace of mind knowing that I get to come to school with 10 students
Mm.
in a room, right? Like I have 10 kids in a space. I also have 10 other kids, but it's 10 kids in one space, right? And that sort of thing. But yeah, I guess advice is just being calm and finding joy. That's what I have, and not sweating the small stuff. Like I know, like people were talking a lot about, this was in the spring, a lot about like falling behind. I've heard a lot of people, a lot of stuff on social media about, oh my gosh, everybody's, my kid's going to fall behind and they're falling behind. And, I think what I've heard sort of as a message is just like, falling behind who? Like,
Wow.
who is the person who strode ahead? Like, that's what I'd like, who was the one that, was there a group of kids that made it farther than anyone else? Like, no, we're all kind of in this together, and
Yeah.
like we're gonna get through, and I did actually, there's one thing I wanted to read.
Totally.
It was a do you mind if I just find it? It's just on my
Yeah, no
phone.
worries.
Yo, go for it.
It was a tweet that I should give credit to. Who was it that actually, somebody retweeted it, and I think I just saved it in my pictures, but I just feel like this is exactly the oh yeah. So this is kind of, and I think this is our school. I work in a super loving school full of like a ton of adults who just absolutely care about kids. But this was retweeted, and it was from another school, but now I can't remember who did that. But so it was just called Just Love Them. And it says, this isn't behavioral. You can't set up a checklist to achieve this. You can't photocopy a worksheet for it. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is that you love your students. They are your kids. Protect them, advocate for them, and always have their best interests at heart. If you follow these principles, you will be on the right track.
Wow.
And I don't think this had nothing to do with COVID. Like, it was from it was called the Autism Helper, or whatever it was, I guess the source of it. And I just thought, that's it. That's what it comes down to, you know? And I mean, that to me, that's advice. That's not just for anyone, like for teachers, that's for parents, that's anybody, right? And
Yeah, that was that was an amazing answer to that
And I think that's a
question. Wow.
beautiful note to wrap this all up with. So thank you so much for joining with us
Yeah.
and sharing all of these things. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, if you don't mind, could you actually send us that tweet or
I'd
wherever
love
you
to.
found that? We'd love to
Yeah.
quote that in the description.
Love
But,
to.
Michael or Mr. Engstrom.
Mr.
Mr.
Engstrom.
Engstrom. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Thank you so much for joining us this evening in our basement.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Michael, for joining us.
Yeah.
I'm so thankful for that conversation that we just were able to have. I was really encouraged to hear about like all of the love that that school has. And did you want to share what really impacted you?
Yeah, for me, it was definitely the story of the hampers and the computers being delivered. I mean, like just stories like that of generosity that I wish would be like the front page of the news. I mean, like that was just so encouraging just to hear, that simple act of love that would have had such an impact to the teachers to be able to do that act of generosity. And then I can't imagine even just for the students to receive it and for the parents of the students as well. Another thing that was encouraging too was I like what he said for the parents, to encourage them to have calm and joy in the midst of this all. And, we're not parents, right? So I can't even imagine what it would be like for them to adapt to these changes. But I appreciated Michael's words. As you and I are both Christians, a verse that sticks out to me in all this is Proverbs 22, verse 6, which is, train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it. And that verse is so powerful. And the truth is that, in 2020, training up a child and raising them looks so different than what one might have imagined. But, here we are, and adapting to these changes. And hearing from Michael today was just so encouraging to hear some of his stories and the encouragement that he had for parents. And so, yeah.
Yeah, so thanks again to Michael for joining us in our basement. We really appreciated it.
And thank you to
you for joining in. And yeah, if you have any comments or input about or questions, we would love to hear them. So comment or message us on one of our social platforms. We would love to hear from you.
Thanks for joining us
in our basement.
Thanks for joining us today in our basement.
Yeah, and before you go, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Go ahead and share this content in your social media platforms. And we hope to see you next time in our basement.